We've talked a little bit about leadership, innovation, ambiguity here. Give me some examples of some companies from the outside looking in that you feel are handling it really, really well from your perspective.
So in terms of local examples, I think...
We mentioned Hutchie. I mean, that was a great setup. Hutchie definitely owes us one there.
We'll make sure we'll cut that out and play that. Being that we're in his home, the home of Hutchie here, which is a fantastic studio, by the way.
So I genuinely think that he is an innovator. He's someone who's kind of moved into a space that's a challenging space. The media space is a challenging space in terms of content and delivery. And Crop Media has done some interesting things. I work very closely with Paul Perreault, the CEO of CSL, and I think CSL is an organisation that's been, a darling company of the stock exchange for decades. But under Paul's leadership over the last 6 or 7 years, it's done some remarkable things beyond just being a blood plasma products company. It's now the largest. By market cap, it's the biggest company on the ASX. And as Paul likes to say, it's the largest pharma no one's ever heard of. Yeah. Right? And so it's a company that I think embodies a lot of what we've been talking about in terms of leadership in transformational times, in terms of experimentation, in terms of change, even in terms of care. So one of the taglines CSL uses is, approaching every day as if somebody's life depends on it, because it does. Now, they have the luxury that the business they're in actually is about saving lives. Yeah. But it's a $130 billion company as a result of that. So I think that's an astounding company. I think there are less obvious organisations that are doing some interesting things. Large organisations like Australia Post, that I think has been trialling things in a number of different areas in Australia that are quite impressive. I think the retail sector is challenged at the moment for a variety of reasons. Australian businesses, I think there was an announcement the other day that Amazon's going to build this robotic warehouse in Sydney next year, which has huge implications, I think, for Australian retailers. But I think what's interesting about Amazon's decision there is not that Amazon necessarily thinks that 24 million people are a huge market for them to serve. I think Amazon's decision on that warehousing is really more about experimentation. So here's a petri dish in which they can do a whole bunch of things that they can't do in other parts of the world as easily. So I think part of the reason they're doing what they're doing here in Australia is around that experimentation. So I think there's some big companies that do it very well. I think there are smaller companies that are trying to do it in terms of leading in transformational times. But I think it goes back to some of the core principles we've talked about, right? Trust, authenticity, care. It's easy to throw those words out there. Yeah. It's kind of hard in practice to deliver on it, to actually do it well.
Yeah, and to be held accountable to it.
And I would add that, for many small, medium businesses, the writing's on the wall over the next little while that this pandemic is not just a health crisis. It's a crisis to the economy, and it's going to be a crisis to livelihoods. There's a Nobel Prize-winning economist by the name of Amartya Sen who made a comment a few weeks ago where he said the presence of disease kills people, but so does the absence of livelihoods. And the sad reality is that there's going to be an absence of livelihoods as a consequence for a bunch of people. And so it becomes even more important from a leadership perspective to show what care you can, to try and lift people up, as you were saying, Vince, before, when there's this kind of fear, and well-justified fear, because there are a lot of people that are likely to lose their jobs, that will lose their livelihoods. How do we as a community, both within our organisations and more generally, how do we as a community put our arms around those people that are doing it tough? And it's not just those that are in the hospitals. It's the small businesses. It's the workers. It's the sports leagues. Yeah.